Hello. Have you ever been in a situation where you meet someone for merely an hour or 5 minutes, but they do something or say something that completely changes your life, the course of your life, they solve your pain or problem, and then you never see them again? And this happened to me. I met a person, and in the matter of 5 minutes, he cured the pain that I was carrying for years. And you know what? I am so lucky to be able to meet this person again and get in touch with his wisdom. And the good news is that you are joining this journey with me today. Please meet my friend Anu.
Hi, bless you.
Um, I met Anu in Bali at the course, and he really changed my life and cured my pain in 5 minutes. And I was seeking him to do the interview. And as I was preparing and telling him, let's talk about this and that. And in the end, we came to nothing. We came to the fact that I do not know him at all. His perspective on life is so much deeper. If you have read Osho, you would know he's an Osho follower and meditator. And it's just very different. And today I would like us, me, and you guys on the other end, to discover this wisdom of life through Anu and see what he will share with us. And maybe this interview will be those 5 minutes that will change your life, trajectory of your life, or heal your pain in some way. Shall we dive in? Anu, can you tell
No
us
pressure. No pressure, yeah?
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What you do? You mentioned to me behind the screen that who you are and what you do, there is no distinction between that um, because what you do is just a role, but it's not who you are. Can you just tell us briefly who you are, what you do, and why?
So, I make music, and I also run groups, and occasionally I take one-to-one clients. So on paper, you could say I'm a therapist and a musician, but I don't really see it like that. Um, for me, the most important is the cultivation of my own presence of heart in life, bringing the more I can bring my heart online at every level, the more that life takes over. I become a vessel for life's, shall we say, in a way, I become a vessel for a kind of destiny, in a way, a vessel for destiny. Life takes over, uh, and I begin living in a way that I don't really need to make much effort to get anywhere or to do anything because it's happening through me. I'm no longer living out of some kind of a survival personality where I need to make a lot of effort in order to make things happen. But in a flow. I'm in a flow of um, showing up to my passion in whatever way that's happening in that moment. Now that sounds chaotic, and to some degree, it is. It's chaotic to the ego, but actually, the heart and the flow of life actually has a great integrity that's already um present in it. And one of the reasons why we grip onto this kind of survival energy and feeling like we need to manage everything and making so much effort to make things happen in our lives. One of the reasons we grip onto that is because we don't trust in the natural inherent integrity that is uh, present in life force. But when we recognize this great intelligence inside life force and we begin to trust in the integrity of that, then there's no more need for managing anything because we recognize that everything is already managed. Uh, I can trust that I'm not going to be doing one thing one day and something else the next day, something else the day after that. It's not complete chaos, you know? There is order. It's just that I'm not the one setting it.
So, on this topic, let me ask you a question. So, by saying that trust the integrity of life and being in the flow, do you mean having a passive approach, like life is happening to me, I have no control of it, or still taking actionable steps towards what we want, but not forcing it or fighting it or being like stressing about it? Like, can you elaborate what you mean?
Well, to some degree, both at the same time of what you just said. Don't, don't try to think about it. This is when you try to think, yeah, this is the problem. When you try too hard to think about it, yeah, things start to feel confusing. Um, Actually, this is one of the biggest problems that we experience. I feel like at so many levels is this contradiction between the masculine and the feminine. You know, uh, this contradiction between feminine wisdom and masculine wisdom. Yeah, and this contradiction often expresses itself as a conflict at the level of gender, but that's a whole other tangent. Um,
Bringing you back to the passive
yeah,
or
within the context of what we're speaking about, I have a tendency to go off on tangents. Um, the truth is an expression of both masculine and feminine wisdom at the same time, which is often a paradox or a contradiction. So, yes, give up, surrender, um, give up doing anything. Stop trying to get somewhere. Let go of your goals. Let go of your intentions. Let go of everything on one level. And then on another level, in that space of surrender, in that space of having so much more space inside of yourself because you're not filling it with your ego's need to aim in a specific direction. Inside that space, feel yourself, recognize what is the direction from inside that space, and then choose that consciously. That's the divine masculine. The divine masculine is recognizing where the flow naturally wants to go and agreeing with that, and then choosing that. But you have to wait and you have to listen and you have to slow down. When we wait and we listen and we slow down, then we become aware of the right way to go, and then we can consciously choose that. So it's almost like the align in some, say, shall we say, mystical or religious circles, they might talk about aligning personal will with God's will.
Mhm.
Now, we won't get into theology and whether or not we believe in God, but it's like aligning our own personal sense of the direction that we need to go with a sense of connecting to the larger whole and listening. Which direction does the larger whole want us to go? Now, if those two things are in sync, this is when we come into flow state. This is when we come into a flow in life where everything is happening and success is happening on many levels. and it feels so easy, you know? When our personal will and the will of God or the will of the bigger picture is not in sync, they're out of sync because I'm trying to manage something and I'm being arrogant and I'm not listening deeply enough to the bigger picture, that's when issues begin rising up. That's when depressions, addictions, symptoms, syndromes, uh, any kind of psychological issue that you can think of rises up into that space. And a simple way of expressing what is the root of that illness, whatever that illness is, it's it's personal will and God's will, or the will of the bigger picture, out of sync, basically. So it's important that we bring those back into sync, and that is how I more and more am living my life. And this is also how my work expresses itself. My work, this is what my work teaches. My work helps people to come into this more surrendered space. Um, so yeah.
Oh, I wanted to ask you, so correct me if I'm wrong. So I understood based on what you said is
Mm.
that when in life, when we want something, you said there's feminine and masculine. So on one part is that we're supposed to listen inside what we really want and take action towards there, like you're not completely in the flow. By listening to what is inside of us is listening to God's will, and that's when our personal will becomes the God's will, and then
Yes.
become in the flow. But if we thinking through the head, making goals through the head, which like very often connected to fears or our egos, and it's not connected to our inner self, which for me is God, because God is within us, then
Yes.
then we're not in the flow.
Exactly.
Now, how do we listen to ourselves? Because this is what I teach in my life coaching. I'm asking people questions so they can dive deep and understand what they truly, truly want, because to each one is different. And um, sometimes to me, I have hard time doing that. Like I do have like a counselor if I'm in a pickle, because it's hard for me um, to connect to myself sometimes. So other techniques, ways to do that on your own, to listen to your inner calling. And then the second question would be, before I forget, is actually I'll ask it later. That will confuse you. So can you tell us if there is a way to listen to yourself, like being in nature, listening to music, doing
Yeah.
what you love? How do we connect to God, if people don't believe in God, just to our inner self?
So I go straight to the root. You you imagine your mother standing in front of you,
Mm-hmm.
and you imagine you're looking her in the eyes, and you're feeling something. And then you say to her, "Dear mother, you are big and I am small. You give and I receive. Thank you for giving me life." And then you bow. And then you let yourself feel that for a moment, that you're smaller than your mother. You also let yourself feel that there's nothing that you can do to help her. Nothing. And then you let yourself feel the despair of that. Yeah. Then something can begin to happen inside of you. Then there's more space for you to be in a state of reception because you're receiving from the original feminine.
If
Yeah.
I'm a man, do I imagine a father, or we all imagine a mother because she gave birth to us?
It's relevant to both sexes, but yeah, it's slightly different. Um, yeah, for a woman, it's this image of bowing, thanking for life, and then she's simply coming into a state of reception. For a man, he's starting from the mother because that's where he gets entangled. He makes the same movement and he bows to the mother and he recognizes his mother is bigger than him and and then but after bowing, he then turns towards his father, yeah, and then he makes a similar movement. You are my father, you are big and I am small. Thank you for supporting the birth of my life force, and then bowing in honor. And then, in a way, the man stays looking into the future, but a little bit closer to the father than to the mother. And
Mm,
for a woman, it's looking into the future, but she's looking a little bit closer to the mother than the father.
So we look ahead. And then what happens? We get answers.
And then this is what I'm describing right now is is uh, a healing, a soul healing direction. So many of us are over managing our lives. And this unconscious frequency of over management has a, is is reflective of entanglements that we have with our parents, but specifically our mother. Yeah. Um, so very often we find that we feel more like the partner in relation to a parent or the parent of a parent than we do the child of our parent, you
Mhm,
know? The way that that expresses itself in our lives is that we have a tendency to overmanage, the same way that we're overmanaging our relation to our parents, you
mhm.
know? So I make it, and I make it sound in what I'm saying, I make it sound like it's an easy movement to make to recognize that our mother is bigger than us and that we receive life from her. And actually, and actually, I've been doing family constellations since 2006, and it's only really in the last year or two that I really started to embody this image. So it's taken me a long time in doing this work to get to a point of really being able to surrender to my mother, actually. Um,
May I ask you a question? When we do that exercise, and let's say, so based on what you said, I got that we are not in the flow of life because we are always trying to take control with our head and overmanage. And
mhm,
one of the roots is from dysfunctional relationship with our parents, where instead of being the child, where the energy flows from parents to the child, it's like in the tree trunk. Uh,
mhm.
have it reversed. The energy goes from the child back to the parent. We become like parents or partners to our own
Yeah,
parents, which is
exactly.
dysfunctional. Um, do we need to heal the relationship and change the relationship with our parents in physical life? Do we need to take actual steps with our actual parents, or we can do just the how would you say it, like mental emotional work, or once we do that inner work, our relationship will kind of like change because we're changing inside? How does it work?
Um, I'm slightly cautious about giving general answers to general questions because, of course, we're also unique
Mhm,
and every situation is different. But in general, I can say um, the more we go inside of ourselves and do the work internally, this has a direct effect on our relationships. Because you have to imagine everyone in a family system is part of an energetic field, a cluster of persons. When one person changes position energetically, that has an effect on everyone else in that field. It doesn't even matter if you're in the physical presence of that. You could be somebody that lives on the opposite side of the world and has no contact with your family members, but through you energetically working on yourself and changing position inside of yourself, it has a direct effect on what's happening in the field of your other family members, even though you might not be in direct contact with them. This is something we have seen time and again in family constellation work, is the psychic ties and links between different members of the same system. So for sure, working on ourselves has a direct impact on the whole system. However, one caveat I can add here is that there may be some people who use this idea or this image that I'm speaking from now as a way to remain in a state of shutdown in relation to their family. So they might do the inner work, and then when they feel this impulse come up to connect, they might just repress it and then tell themselves the story. Oh, but I don't need to connect with my actual family because I'm doing the work with myself, you know?
Mm.
So it's important that we do the work with ourselves, and it's also important that in that work that we're doing with ourselves, that we're honest with ourselves,
I
is
love,
what I wanted to say.
how you putting it, because I was healing a relationship with my father, and I did so many meditations and worked with mediums, and I thought, oh, okay, so okay, I'm no longer mad at my father. On the physical level, nothing changed, and I realized, well, no, like I just worked through my ego. Basically, I tried to do healing, but I always use my ego. It's like I'm doing healing so I can have a healthy relationship, like with my future partner. It wasn't to truly connect and love my father for who he is, no matter what he has done. And at some point, I came to that realization and I did the inner work, and I'm getting goosebumps. And my father, like for the first time on the phone, he said, I love you. He really changed, but that's because I changed and I actually was making steps to get to know him, to love him unconditionally for who he is. And it was magical. So I really love what you say. A lot of people work on their inner selves, but it's just out of ego. It's not to truly connect and like accept
Well,
and heal the relationship.
that's beautiful, and and I offer um a maybe a slightly different way of seeing that, is that maybe your father never needed to change, and maybe your father was waiting for you to change in order that he could give expression to what it is that he gave expression to. Because wherever you were standing before, you were unavailable to receive what he had to say or what he had to express. And suddenly you turned around and you're looking at him and he's like, oh, now I can express it. That
Absolutely.
makes sense.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
cool. And another question, going back to being in the flow, where you mentioned that when we are connected to our personal self, connects with God, which is to me is one. Um, does it mean that there is like our path is predestined and we just need to kind of like get to it from within us? Like God wants you to do this and that, and like learn this and that, and that's kind of your.
I just, I'm, this may or may not be directly connected to this question, but it's something that's just rising up right now. And it's about holding our beliefs loosely. Um, I just want to speak into this for a moment, because when you talk about, you said, you spoke about the self and about God, and and that you believe that they're one and the same. Uh, and so I just feel like in response to that, just to just share for a moment that because I also hold that belief loosely, but it's important that we hold it loosely and that we remain open to the possibility that it might be different than that. Um,
So
this
basically, I
is
know that I know nothing, like Socrates
exactly.
said.
Because this is why we have so much war and conflict in the world, is because of our identification with a specific system of belief. When I believe that something is a certain way, and I believe that strongly enough, what effect that has on me is that it polarizes me. It brings me into a space where there is always going to be an opposite belief, and there are always going to be people who have opposite beliefs. Yeah. And so then what happens is, in that deeper identification with that belief, is I'm pitting myself against half of the rest of the world. Yeah. And then I lose energy and I become weaker because my energy is being used without my even knowledge of this. My energy is being used in a polarized dynamic, collective dynamic, you know. When I meditate, meditation helps me to loosen my attachment or my identification with a belief or set of beliefs. And if I can come into a space of acknowledging and recognizing that I don't know anything actually, and that I am completely new in this moment right now, that everything that I thought I knew is a complete lie, and I'm just here. Nothing matters. There isn't anything. There's no, if when I can come from that purity of presence, and I'm as far enough away from the echo of previous beliefs, then then I come into a deeper relationship with the divine, with the bigger picture, with the self, whatever you want to call it. Then in that moment, I have myself fully. I own myself fully. As soon as the beliefs start coming back in again and I start identifying with them again, then I start to lose myself again and find myself more of a character or a personality rather than the essence of a being. Uh, so yeah,
But how can we, like, I know that 1 + 1 = 2. How can I think, well, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 100, maybe I know nothing. It's just hard. I believe that our human nature, and especially our ego, we want to have those belief systems because they in a way define who we are, where we're in the world, what is black, what is white,
yeah,
what
because
is
we're
what
yeah,
is
for
bad.
sure. Yes.
It's
Because we're afraid of the unknown, and the deeper underneath that is we're afraid of death, actually, because death is the greatest unknown. So our fear of death expresses itself through creating more attachment with our egos, and the ego has a great need to know, it has a great need to understand, and um we we're born into conditioned belief systems. We're born into them. As soon as we can speak and understand cognitively, we're being trained into deeper identification with those conditionings and with those belief systems, whether they be religious, scientific, cultural, uh, whatever, educational, whatever it is, we're being entrained into them. So when we're born, we start in a purity of consciousness. We're not attached. Um, to anything because we don't have the language to be for our minds to get so involved. Yeah. It's only in the development of language that the mind gets over involved and we start becoming more deeply conditioned. Yeah. But where we start is like a purity of innocence, a purity of consciousness. And then we have like 20 years, maybe more, of going deeper and deeper and deeper into cultural, religious, scientific conditioning. Yeah. And then at some point, we may or may not discover meditation and to some degree different therapeutic approaches. And then we can start getting out of that conditioning and slowly loosening up what we have spent so long tightening inside of ourselves, you know? Um, so yes, the mind knows a lot. The ego knows a lot. And yes, there are certain things that you might say, well, that's a fact. Why am I going to let go of that and just open to the unknown? You know? And and if you still have that question, then great, celebrate that. There's nothing else to do.
Question. So we're having a conversation right now. We're talking about
Yeah.
how to be in the flow, how to be, um, happy. You're sharing your knowledge. So
Uh-huh.
based on what you just said, that these
Yeah.
are your beliefs, your thoughts
Yes,
you acquired somewhere from within, from outside. So it all might not be true.
correct.
I really, really love
Yes.
the way you think. That's why I was so drawn to you because on one level, I am very cerebral and analytical, and I need to analyze things. And then on the other hand, when I go into myself, I'm like, it all doesn't matter. I do believe that this is like, everything is belief. We know that we know nothing. And um yeah, that, like, maybe we're just in a matrix or something. So nothing is there is no truth. There is no one truth, because there will always.
Can you feel that? But can you feel what's happening in the body right now as a result of arriving to this space of acknowledging that we don't know anything?
Yes,
Acknowledging that
I
you just listened to a
can.
whole lot of stuff that
I
made sense to some degree, but that you also acknowledge actually it might all be just completely incorrect. Like how much more alive do you feel in I feel way more alive in my body now. Like
Yes, because it gives you, first of all, it gives you this sense of liberation, that you might be wrong, you might be like, you don't have to believe tomorrow in what you believe today, because very often people have these beliefs and then they don't come out true with time, and then they will try to force the reality um to correlate with those
oh,
beliefs. They're afraid to face the new truth, and then there will be something else, and it's just so liberating to be like, well, today I think this and it works for me, and I love it. But then it may not work for you tomorrow, and it's absolutely fine.
yes, and what I just connected with as you were speaking was that some people might be listening to us and kind of feeling into this topic, and they may be thinking to themselves, well, if I'm changing my mind every 5 minutes, then doesn't isn't that like a lack of integrity? You
Yeah, well,
know?
I'm not talking about that.
Yeah,
It may
exactly.
sound this way.
Yeah, but for some people, they may hear it like that, like because if you can't pin anything down specifically and there's nothing to believe in, then just it can be like your mind changing every 5 minutes, no? But it just reminded me of this quote by Albert Camus, this old author. Integrity has no need of rules, and I really like this quote. It's
Integrity
that
has no need of
integrity integrity has no need of rules.
rule.
And then I get reminded of another quote by the there's two Japanese guys. I think one was called Hijikata and the other one was called Uno. And they developed something called Buto dance back in the 1950s. It was a reaction to American postmodernist dance in Japan. And it's this really weird dance where they basically get naked, they paint themselves white, and then they dance all of these like shadow energies through. Anyway, one of the founders of Buto said that there are two ways to approach the creative process. Uh, One of them is you perfect structure. You make the structure so precise and so beautiful that the spirit cannot resist to be drawn into it. Yeah. And then the other way is you just really deeply trust and you flow with spirit. And then the beauty that happens in that movement, structure forms itself around
Mhm.
the flow that you're in. in a way. And so I feel like the second piece about just trusting and flowing and then the structure just appearing, it's like the integrity not needing the rules, you know? There is there is integrity in spontaneous flow, you know? It's like the shall we say the feminine way is really trusting the flow, going with the flow, and then uh life somehow appears and manifests around that. And then the masculine way is perfecting the structure or, having goals, um, engaging your schedule from a centered and meditative space, not from a hectic, unconscious, because that's not going to get you anywhere. And then beauty will be attracted in there, and different of us living in different of those ways. For me, I find the way of going with the flow and trusting that the structure is going to appear much easier. I live most of my life much more like that than the other way around. I've always found the other way around more difficult, partially because I have the ADHD. Last year, I was diagnosed as having been a severe ADHD child and a severe ADHD adult. So that has been a big, shall we say, catalyst in my growth. Massive, probably the biggest catalyst in my growth actually has been my ADHD, because a lot of my searching and seeking to heal myself has been a response to that syndrome. Um, yeah, feeling lost and fragmented and just ungrounded and all over the place from a very early age. Um, I had to find some deeper truth in that somehow. That kind of the nature of that space that I have been in from a very small child, where everything just the space just felt overwhelming. I just constantly felt the amount of space to be overwhelming. Um, and what that created in me was uh a longing for more. Actually, that's the paradox. It was like I had so much space and it was overwhelming me, but it just created in me this longing for more space, you know? And so all of my seeking and all of my searching was about me attempting to feel comfortable in in how much space there is actually. Like, because unlike normal egos, if I can say normal egos, if whatever that means, like um, I, you know, I never had, some people are born into a gift or into knowing like this is what I want to do, or they have a solid reference point where they can go, oh yeah, I'm going in this way. And I never had that. I always felt like, where am I? What's going on? Like, what is this life? Like constant questioning. So I really very much felt like I had to find my own way um, to this channel of passion or this gift in a way, because there was nothing on the outside that I could attach it to. A lot of people who have gifts that they can really attach to something more solid. My gift is not solid, it's internal. It's it's a consciousness, is also a music, and neither of those things are solid, you know? And so therapy, meditation, and music have been the things that have helped me the most to be able to come into a deeper embrace of myself, who I am, and the gifts that I have been born into in this life. And for others, they may also find that therapy, meditation, and music does that for them. And for some people, it might be something completely different, you know? It's not to say that just because those are the things that help me to wake up, that they're going to help everyone to wake up, you know? This was also a trap that I fell into when I was younger in my 20s. I always felt that whatever was the most inspiring thing for me in the moment was the thing that I had to convince the rest of the world that they had to do. You know, like somehow I had found the ultimate truth.
And now we know there's no truth.
Yeah.
Well,
So
Anu, thank you so much for sharing your deep, deep wisdom. And I am so grateful that you allowed me to be in the flow, because what I wanted out of this interview is completely different how it turned out. And it turned out so beautiful. I got so many insights, and I hope people who are watching this got a lot of insights as well, about life, maybe answered their own questions, maybe became a little more awakened and would like to seek the ultimate truth themselves. Thank you so much.
let's laugh. Let's laugh even harder at that one.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing this space and finding time to meet
Thank
me.
you for receiving me.
I know you going to India to continue your journey. By the way, Anu is also a fellow traveler. He has been all over the world, and that also expanded your mind, right?
For sure. Yeah. Experiencing the diversity of cultures. In fact, a lot of my family constellation trainings I did in other cultures. So because I followed an Osho teacher who teaches mainly family constellations for about 13 years, and he runs trainings all around the world. So I was literally just following him um into different cultures and then processing collective trauma from those cultures, so that it really helped me at the deepest level to really understand the cultures that I was doing those trainings in. So yeah, I definitely celebrate and champion experiencing diversity. I think when we can move towards diversity and challenge with compassionate awareness, then we grow. When we move towards with compassionate awareness and curiosity, we're always going to grow.
Yes, I completely agree. Thank you, Anu, for being here. I will list information how you can follow Anu, his wisdom, his journey, his music is absolutely outstanding, speaks to my soul every day. I will list all of the information below. If you have any questions about our conversation, what we meant, if you want us to go deeper, if you would like to invite Anu for another deep conversation and get to know him and his wisdom a little bit more, leave comments below. And of course, like, share, and subscribe so you can stay with me and follow my content on how to make your life more meaningful, beautiful, joyful, and fulfilling. Till next time, I love you.